Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of GM Tips. I'm Satine Phoenix, co-creator of Maze Arcana and Dungeon Master of Savage Nation. So, you finally found a group of adventurers who bought in. Congratulations! You scheduled your games out and everyone can make it every week for the next year. Fantastic. Everything's been going well. Your party's evolved and you're nearing the end of your story. But they don't want it to end. How do you keep it going? Today's theme is the never-ending story. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep the story going? Tip number 1, bring it on back. Return to elements from the beginning of the story. Maybe there were some threads left unwoven. Were there NPCs who were left behind? Bring them on back. Tie up those loose ends. You can have the characters experience the consequences of their choices. This can be exciting for your players while you're busy planning for the next big story arc. Tip number 2, learn the world. Knowing the world you're GMing in populates your brain with information so nothing surprises you. Preparation in this manner will make you feel more confident for the next transition. They might not even realize the story's about to end, and you can seem like the best storyteller ever. Games have continents to explore, holidays to celebrate. Every city has a population and a political structure. An entertainment industry, a pantheon. The world you play in has people who live in each of the houses, workers in each of the stores. With this knowledge, you can allow your players to wander about and always have a path for them to go down, even if you haven't already planned for it. Once you figure out the next story arc, you can easily link everything to where you want it to go. Tip number 3, let the characters guide you. You can ask your players where they would like to go next, or what kind of things they want to explore. You don't have to be the brain master of each story. A lot of the time, the character choices will take the players in a certain direction. Pay attention to the choices they make. Check to see if someone hasn't gotten to make any choices that they want. Your players have a lot of ideas. It's a game. Play with them. I could roll on, but let's discuss this with Colossus, Godzilla, and Iron Man, aka TJ Storm. Yay! Thank you so much for coming.
No,
this is
thanks for
awesome.
having me. This is great.
So, I don't know if you guys know, but TJ ran a 15-year game. I have honestly never heard that before.
One campaign was called Company of the Bull, and the players, although we had the main base of players, a couple of guys came in and out, but it was always the same, pretty much the same core group.
So how do you plan a 15-year story?
I don't think you do plan 15 years. That's the secret. In the beginning, I didn't have a plan. When I was a kid, we always started D&D by, so you're walking through the woods. And I think it started something like that. And it was like that until about 5th level. And then I started looking for better stories, which aka as modules and stuff like that. And I started getting into the modules and I started seeing some cool things. And I needed a way to string some of the modules together. So I was like, I'll have these little side adventures and find something kind of cool. And the players, they make a lot of the stuff happen.
Yeah,
because they get into all kinds of fun trouble. Some get arrested. They need to be rescued. They cause things to happen. And they visited a fortune teller. And they made their way towards one. And I knew that was coming. We'll go visit the fortune teller. We'll find out. And I was like, fortune teller? What's a fortune teller going to say?
And then you studied fortune tellers.
Yes. And I was like, I started writing down ideas, and one of the guys had been cursed. He was a ranger. His name was Meldakar. He'd been cursed to get a bull's head because he was stubborn. So somebody cursed him, and it turned his head into a bull's head.
Minotaur?
Kinda. He's not a minotaur. He's just a ranger with a bull's head. He's a half-elf, yeah. And he walked around, and he thought this sucks. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to my character, bull's head. So I started writing things down. The word bovine and hoof, and I came up with all these things that kind of wrote out a little destiny that hinted at a group that was led by maybe a bull. And they heard it when they got to the fortune teller in the next game. They started hearing parts of that destiny, and they're like, they followed the bull to what? And it was only half of the destiny. Truth is, I only had time to write half of it, so I was like, the last part was lost. And they're like, wait a minute, is this our fortune, or is this something that's been written down? And I was like, this is an old thing, although I don't know where the other half is.
As you're making it up on the fly.
So, yeah, so they were like, we have to find the other half. And I'm like, yes, you have to find the other half. And that's where it started. And nobody planned for it to go 15 years, but as they leveled up, the modules got bigger and bigger. But at the same time, I was always thinking about the future, like, all right, how are they going to get to point C? How about part D? And we just kept on doing it like that.
And so how long did the Destiny story arc last?
It kept on going. And in fact, technically we could pick up and they could step back into it. Now, they've grown hugely. That character, Meldikar, the stubborn guy with the bull's head, is now known as the Bull God. And he's walking across basically Egypt, and wherever he walks, he leaves grass behind it.
Just walk around in circles and back and forth in a
yes.
looking farm behind you.
Computer game style. That was perfect. But yeah, and that's kind of where we went with it.
Do you still just go and take different modules to create your story and the episodes, I guess?
I mean, I use modules when it was either really convenient, because although modules are kind of like microwave dinners, you just pop them in and they're ready, you got to study them. But the modules really helped, but it took a lot of work to use them. And then some of them, the modules make you the hero if you survive it. So there was one called, I want to say it was called the Black Cursor or something like that. It was part of kind of like a Genghis Khan campaign, where Genghis Khan is coming from the west, from the east, and he's flooding west.
Oh wow!
And it's huge. It's big.
Sounds epic.
You end up in the Khan's presence, and he's like, "What is best in life?" And you're like, "Lollipops." And so you had to talk to him and help him decide what course he was going to take, and that fit into the destiny, because these guys were supposed to do great things. So I was like, I just kind of wove the storylines together. And it had huge consequences for the campaign, because like Genghis Khan, he just washed across the nation and he took over. And they eventually helped stop him, or at least turn the tide a different direction. So that made them feel more like, we are having an effect on this world, guys. Yeah, we did it. We stopped the Khan. And that's really cool. But that also played into the destiny.
That's really interesting, actually. Just throwing in different modules has an effect on the overall, because you have this idea, but all of a sudden you've introduced all of these different groups of ideas, and they become a new story alongside your story.
Absolutely.
Did you know that you were going to come to the end of your story with the Destiny arc and those players?
No. In fact, like I said, it's still open-ended. We would play it for 8 weeks, and like, you guys want a break? Yeah, I want to play a wizard and a frog. I'm like, all right, great, we'll do that. So we'd switch. We'd switch. Now, if people showed up on time, I'd always give them something called points. Like, you just got 3 points. You're a little late, you got 2 points. You're very late, you got 1 point. You came up halfway through, you get 0 points. And then they use those points to vote on which campaign they wanted to play next week.
Oh, that is really cool.
So, and if they want to start a new campaign, they spend some points, and I'm like, all right, we'll start that campaign. So we'd step away, and then we'd come back. But the things that those people did in that campaign, they left footprints in the world. So if you start the new campaign, you're way over here, I'll say, well, you guys know that to the east, there's fires burning. You've heard that Genghis Khan and his men have just torn through that part of the countryside. You don't dare go that direction.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we did that. Because those are the same players who were a part of that. And they're like, yeah, we better not go east, guys. Let's go this way. So it makes it really, really fun to see the effects of your character. One time they did the story, they did the heroic thing, but in doing so, they released a demon into a city.
As you do.
And
in gaming.
they took off. And I was like, wait, you guys are gonna leave? Yeah, we gotta be places. I'm like, you guys are gonna leave a demon in this small city.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Just don't. It's not good. Your game master will use that.
They did that. So long story short, if you ever go back to that city, there are repercussions, and they have with other characters, and it was not good. So it is really, really fun to be able to take things that your characters have done and weave it into the world, because that is creating the mythology, the tapestry of your entire campaign.
I heard that you do a little thing to your players who aren't on their game.
Oh. Well, we have a reward system and a minor punishment system. The reward system is for great role-playing, or if you do something that's very in character. Even if it's against your own good, you get extra credit for that, because you're playing, or if you know that chest that's sitting at the end of the room is all by itself and it looks just perfect, and you know that it's a mimic but it's a chest and I'm a thief. If you still do that, I'll give you extra credit. It won't help you when you're dead, but whatever.
Yeah,
That's not the point. But no, I'll give you extra credit, and we call it a check system. But when you use player knowledge, and I'm saying, all right, you see a tentacle, then you see another tentacle. Is it a mind flayer? I want to, and you're like,
Metagaming. That's called metagaming.
metagaming kills me, and we give them a notch or we call them notches, and you minus experience. It's very little. It's a slap on the wrist, but everybody knows to go. You see a tentacle. That's great because now that brings up the tension, and people are like, and that's the best thing ever because everybody else is like, what? What does he know? What's the problem? I'm like, nothing. Just go over. It's probably an octopus.
What does your pre-game house rule explanation look like?
Pre-game house rule explanation. Well, I'm mostly about staying in character. I want you to see the world through your character's eyes, and I want the world to see your character. So I'm all about be in character. I'll take care of all the numbers. Occasionally you're going to roll some dice. Don't worry about that. I'll do most of the calculations. Again, that comes with knowing all the rules and being fluid. But stay in character. The more you're in character, the more I can see who your character is, the more experience you're going to get, and the more fun you're going to get, because all the other players at the table are going to react to your character. So whatever you bring, it's going to come back to you, and you're going to have fun.
That's a really good explanation.
It's really fun.
What's your favorite GM moment?
So we were playing when there was a new guy, and he's like, I want to play a Spartan. And I'm like, a Spartan in France? Okay, sure. So I knew that world was far away. It's hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So I needed a way to get him into the game as a Spartan. He wanted to be a Spartan. I'm like, all right, be a Spartan. So we opened a portal up, and this is at the beginning of the game. They're in this forest, an ancient forest, and they're trying to find a way out. And a portal opens up, and they're like, yes, finally a way. And they're looking at a desert, and like, what is that? And I'm like, you see a very tall man, what appears to be a bull's head with massive horns, and he's walking, and you can feel his footsteps go, doom, doom. And they're like, we can feel his foot. Did you say he's got a bull's head? And they all knew of Meldikar, the bull god, and they're like, they've heard of him from the other campaign. He wasn't part of this group. They're like, I think that's the guy, and all of a sudden they see a war break out around that character, and they see all this amazing stuff, and Meldikar goes, charge! And the Spartans get blown back, and a couple of the Spartans get blown through the portal, and the portal starts to close, and the last thing they see is Meldikar's bullhead turn and see them, and then hope! And the Spartans were left here in this forest, and they're like trying to get back to their men. They're like, what happened? They're like, what was that? And they were part of the group now.
Really quick GM tip to the audience.
Again, I always go back to the basics. And the basics here are know your basics, know your world, and know the rules. If you can handle all of that stuff and tell a fluid, fun story, make them feel like the heroes that they are portraying, or at least the character that they want. Not everybody wants to be the shining hero. Some people want to be that clever guy who does that cool thing. Yeah. Let them be that and really know your characters and kind of plan out the game for certain characters. Sometimes we call it the spotlight. Sometimes the spotlight is on the paladin. Other times the spotlight will be on the thief. And they won't even know it until I put something in the game that is only their skill can really have an effect on, or that moment they can really step into the spotlight. And there's that castle, and there's only one way in, and that's that little hole at the top. And everybody looks at the paladin, and they're like, don't look at me. So then everybody looks at the thief, and they're like, I got this. And it's great. So make them feel like heroes and know your world.
Yes! Thanks for coming out and chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really cool. You guys can follow TJ on Twitter at TJStorm01. Well, that's the end of our show. We'll see you next on GM Tips here at Geek and Sundry. In the meantime, you can always find me on Twitter at Satine Phoenix and every Sunday on twitch.tv/Mazarcana. TJ, would you pretty please GM us out of here?
As you wish. There are few GMs that will withstand the test of time. The wise will use story and guile. The strong will battle through fire and steel. The question is, which are you?